Hi everyone, thank you for joining me live. It's Veroosh, and we're going to talk about maybe 4 transits tonight that are very important. So we did a video a couple days ago on the time between now and when Saturn goes retrograde. So I recommend that you watch that because what we talk about today is connected with it, but it is a set of secondary transits that are happening alongside this that we've been all very aware of because of current events that are happening. So I thought we would go over these things and I'll explain them to you. And thank you guys for waiting for me again. We're going to get back on track. It's just one thing at a time. Make sure that everything's going well. I hope everything's going well with you. And of course, with the current events of this week in Texas, I was at first hesitant to talk about this, and I'm not going to talk about it explicitly because it's not safe to do so. But there's been an upsurge of violent energy that's happened. And if you want to know more, how do I say this? My premonitions or prophecies, they come naturally, but I filter them for certain social media platforms like YouTube. So to make a YouTube video, it takes extra time, and it's not necessarily easy to talk about difficult things here. So it's better if you follow me on Twitter. That's where I send out my alerts the most. So follow me on Twitter if you want last minute updates on extreme astrology or whatever. I'm also active on other social media platforms, but that's all going to still adjust as I come back full time to do this. And so the reason I'm telling you this is this week there was some intense transits, and we're going to show you them. We're going to talk about them, and I'm going to answer some of the questions I've been having because I've already made posts about these transits already. And then there is a very special transit that's starting in 2 days that I think will bring a lot of hope for you guys and a lot of things to look forward to. So we'll talk about that as well. And so also tomorrow morning, members, we're going to start. Sorry about the delay. It threw a curveball in my direction in terms of these frequencies because out of respect for everybody who's affected, both in America and Ukraine, it's difficult to talk about it. And until I'm settled in the energy and know how to speak on it, I want to talk about it. So we're not going to talk about world events, but these world events are parallels of what's going on for us. And I don't know about you. When I told you guys the last video, I'm coming right back, there was something in me that said, yeah, Veroosh, something else is going to come up. And I don't want to cry on your shoulder. I don't need to. Nothing bad happened. I had an encounter with somebody who was pretty mentally unstable, let's just put it that way, and they had a really violent outburst, and I was with someone who was a senior, and it was just, there's been a lot of information to process, and before I speak to these energies, I want to think about them or process them so I can speak to them on a positive level. So yeah, it's been pretty crazy. We're going to talk about the astrology, and I'm here to provide support for you guys because the 3 transits that we're going to talk about today are very serious, very intense, and they're almost over, just so you know. But if you're feeling like weighed down, I just want to be here. I know I haven't been here a lot, so I wanted to do an astrology reading with all of you guys and just put your mind at rest. Sometimes if something's crazy going on, that's crazy in my life, like I have had the encounter with the person that was unstable, when you go through that and you realize that it's a transit that is influencing that or is the spark behind it, it actually really helps to put it to rest. So maybe some person out there who watches this had an encounter with a family member or with someone else and they're distraught. So I thought, oh, okay, let's do a video about this so that we can, put it to rest or put somebody's mind to rest. So it's a shorter video today, but I want to do a collective video. I also switched something about my camera, and my nails are dirty because, gardening. But if you guys can tell me if you think the video quality is better, let me know in the comments if it's looking better today, because there's a pretty big upgrade that I made, so I'm curious if you like it. Okay, so, and if you're sensitive to harsh conversations, this is not a hard conversation. We're just going to acknowledge what's going on, and then we're going to provide you guys some solutions. I've already heard people's questions, and then at the end, we're going to talk about some really, really good energy. Yeah, my light is very on. There's a really good transit that we're under, so I'm here to sort of bring light or bring happiness or a positive interpretation to some of the things that are going on, because I'm aware of it. So in the darkness, there is a very bright light that's beginning. So yeah, I'm excited. I should have done it way before, but whatever. There's like things like my website. I have some friends that are in programming and they're like, Veroosh, we'll do it for you. We'll help you. And I'm like, there's just things. Also, if you want a reading, it's in the comment. And sorry, you guys, if you're waiting for your reading, I am going to get to it right away. And I will be working weekends for the people who are waiting for their reading. Sorry about that. It's between my leg and now this. It was just a bumpy ride back in, but that's good. We're going to be cruising. So why don't we pick 10 cards, because it was a long intro, but I think it's good. So to touch base. So we have the Magician. So Mercury energy strong. So Mercury is retrograde right now. We'll do astrology in a minute, but so Mercury is now in Taurus, and Mercury is with the Medusa star. So that's important. That's one of the transits that we're going to talk about today. And then we have the Ace of Cups. There's a rethinking of a relationship, a reimagining of a relationship. And when I say relationship, if you guys are new, I mean it can be a friendship, or it can be a family relationship, or it can be romantic. So you apply it to the type of relationship that matters to you. If one comes up more than the others, I'll tell you, but there could be a rekindling of a relationship right now. But I think making peace, and that's been coming strongly as a download. I think that there's a real openness to new beginnings. And I think that the masculine energy is really recognizing the masculine energy has been humbled. And by humbled, I mean realizing that, it almost feels as though the masculine has overstepped their boundaries or done something through the ego, and maybe something unfairly even or unjustly. And there's been a humbling energy here, bringing the masculine to recognize that maybe the being too aggressive, right? Too testosterone driven, too I driven kind of mentality. By the way, I heard one of these coders say that this coder guy's like, guys are better than girls at computer programming, which is not true. And I replied right away and I said, well, women have been doing housework for thousands of years, so we have multitasking abilities. Genetically, we're predispositioned for the ability to consider many different things at once, which I think would make a really good coder. But another quality that ties into this, the reason I'm mentioning it, is that women have characteristically been driven because of misogyny and sexism. Women have had to collaborate in order to make do, to feed themselves, to feed their families, you know. So there are so many examples of women having to work with others and collaborating in stressful situations. So women have, I'm not saying men can't do those things, but I think that for people to say men are better coders, I think those are 2 points why that would suggest that women actually are better on programming teams. So just a little feedback if that person's watching, hi, but that's just my take. So this like humbling energy, you know, too much through the ego, speaks through their insecurities, and then realizes like, oh, it's actually better to be humble, and so someone assumed that they could do something on their own, and then they realize that like, I'm hurting myself in the process. That's the humbling. So that's the more masculine. The feminine energy is really strong, initiating something new and a new beginning. Then we have the Ace of Wands, new community, new family. Be very open to the people that you meet, and be open to new opportunities. Look at all these aces. We're heading into a new moon. That's why this is just a short video. The new moon video I'm very excited about. It's probably the next one the collective is going to see from me on this platform, and it's very, very interesting. And I hurt my thumb too, so my hands just look drab, but I don't care. Okay, so, and in high definition now because because of upgrades. Now I can see all the cuts and all the little pieces of dirt under my nails from the garden. Okay, so 2 of Cups in the next position. I think that there's a real tight knit of community around you. Family is very strong. I want to say something from the last video because I want to correct myself. Do you guys remember how I told you, oh, Ceres is in Cancer, this is really good for women? It is. But guess what else is in Cancer? And I forgot about this because I don't follow this transit at this point in time. Lilith. Okay, so you might be getting a bit of a dual energy. There might be a big standoff between the light and the dark, the nurturing and the problematic. In family relationships, we get both. We get the good and the bad, right? And so with those people with whom you're experiencing good and bad, that might be really strong right now, which means that, you know, the aunt who you love dearly because she's wonderful and nurturing, but sometimes she's just a bit of a witch, and she's a little bit, you know, hairy, scary. And I don't mean witch in a good way. I mean that in a pejorative. And so this Lilith energy here, you could be seeing that more pronounced. So she could be more good and then also more stressful. So, and I speak through the she, but I'm going to make more content on this. Remember, these energies, we associate them to the feminine or masculine, but they're bigger patterns of frequency, and their definition isn't necessarily just female. So this could very well be a masculine energy, but it could be working through the feminine. So I did want to correct myself for all of you. You know, if you're wondering if at home there's a mixed bag of energy, and I was like, oh, it should be really good. And if you're sitting there scratching yourself saying, actually, there's been some problems, it was my mistake. Lilith is in Cancer. I tried to ignore some of these transits. We're going to talk about Eris too today. Just because, I don't know, I want to see the possibilities, but sometimes we have to talk about these transits, and one of those sometimes is today. So, you know, but still, regardless of what's going on, we have the 2 of Cups. This is Venus in Cancer. So very, very well aspected to Ceres in Cancer. Ceres and Venus in Cancer could be like twin sisters, you know, very nurturing, very kind. One's a little bit more spunky, one's a little bit more nurturing, but they're there. And so in your family, there's a very nurturing camaraderie. And remember, family is not necessarily blood family, so you just adjust it for what is appropriate. 4 of Cups next. Okay. So, I think that there are different options coming up for you at this time than what were available in the past. I think that maybe there's someone coming back to you again. So this isn't a big deal, but this could be someone who, you know, wasn't too open to you suddenly is interested, or someone who didn't phone you back suddenly calls you and wants to talk. So there's some kind of energy of proving them wrong, but it's not like it's not like an intense moment of, you know, like tension between people. This is more, you know that they know and they know that you know, but it's kind of a pink elephant in the room. So they sort of slightly showed either disinterest or moved away, and now they're sort of, it feels like there's a cowering back sort of energy. It's not necessarily bad. People are meant to learn their lessons, right? And realize what's good. But the feminine energy is very strong and starting something new here. So I'm excited to see that. Okay, then we have this 9 of Pentacles. That's Venus in Virgo. Girls or women or whatever your personal pronouns are, that's fine. But the feminine energy, very good opportunities ahead of you. Then we have the 6 of Swords. I know this is a mix-up, but 6 of Swords, some people are choosing to move off by themselves. So in some instances, the person who's coming back is not going to be welcome. And whether they know it or not, there could be people, you, the querent, the person who's watching, could be quietly moving in your own direction. It's time to move on. Not everyone, but for some of you, it's this quiet, I need to walk away from this situation. Emperor energy. Husband good, father good, brother good, friend good, you know, career good. If you're thinking of starting a new career, Mercury retrograde's not the time to sign up for it yet. But I do think that there could be some really good potential ideas that are coming up for you now. So before it gets too dark, it's very dark right now. We've had crazy, crazy weather. Why don't I tell you about the transits that have been happening? First, we're going to go back a little bit to start with Eris and Venus. So first of all, intro, the next 3 transits are intense, they're harsh, but I'm not telling you these things to be disparaging. I'm telling you these things so you can, if crazy things have been happening around you at this time, you can say, this, was a catalyst for this. This accentuated it. So you can not feel like the world is crazy and say, oh, this really rare 3 sets of transits are happening right now and they're influencing us to feel this way. So don't worry, it's not you. A lot of people are leaving me messages that things just, it's not even, it is anger and it is frustration, but it's, a lot of people are like just chaos energy. So, but chaos can be in itself leading to some truth anyway. So I hope you are getting in that chaos some kind of a silver lining or understanding out of it. So a couple days ago, 3 days ago on May 23rd, Venus actually crossed Eris, and Eris is Discordia, and that's Latin. Discordia, Eris is the Greek name, and she was a goddess that started the Trojan War. And so she essentially was not invited to a party, and she instead manipulated Venus. So Venus is right here, depending on the story between Aphrodite and Venus, whether it's Greek or Roman. But Discordia manipulated Venus, just going with the Roman, and forced them to humiliate themselves by stripping down bare at a party to try to prove that they're the most beautiful. So manipulated her vanity. And that led to a fallout, and it led to the beginning of the Trojan War, because Venus, the person who was the judge of that contest was Paris, and Venus promised to Paris that he could choose any girl that he wanted, and he picked, of course, Helen of Troy, the most beautiful woman on earth. And so, but she was promised to a king. And so Venus said, okay, so you let me win this contest, and you can have Helen. But you know, these stories always have a surprise twist. And so the surprise twist was that Paris stole Helen, and that's how the Trojan War began. So Venus was behind it all, but Eris was really behind it all with this contest. So there's a real deep connection between Eris and Venus. These are parables that are supposed to give us some kind of context and meaning. And the reason I didn't do this video earlier is because obviously with Eris, she is the counterpart of Mars. So you can even see that her glyph looks just like Mars is just turned in. Some people say that she's his daughter. Some people say that she's his wife. So there's different stories attributing her differently, but they were associated with war. And so she was even described as, going onto the battlefield in the Trojan War and dancing around the bodies and so forth. So very, very villainous figure. And so again, it's not because she's female, so we're not being sexist. The stories are attributed to them because they're women, and that's the sexism, but the energy in itself is not feminine, right? But when this conjunction happened, of course, Texas happened. I'm not going to get into it, but that's why I wasn't here to talk about it too fresh. And I actually did content on it before that happened, so there's no reason to say, haha, I told you so. But in terms of awareness, if something happened in your life through these last 3 days that has been chaotic, it's very likely the conjunction of Venus and Eris. Mind you, this happens every year, so you have to put it into context, right? You can't run with it. This happens every 10 months when Venus is here. Eris, a lot of people were freaking out, like, I have this in Aries, I have this in Aries. What does this have to do for me? Everybody has Eris in Aries. Eris entered Aries in the 30s or maybe early 40s, 1940s. So she's a very slow moving transit. And so she has a very... she's very far from the Earth, about 40 astronomical units. An astronomical unit is the distance from the Earth to the Sun, so 40 times further from the Earth than we are from the Sun. I hope that makes sense. So she goes and she has an elliptical high eccentricity, which means that she's like on a very intense angle. She has a very strange orbit. Some scientists say that it's because of the pull of Neptune that has pulled her orbit in such a strange way. So she doesn't spend a lot of time in every single sign, but in certain signs, she's just basically moving very slowly. And so Aries is one of those signs, and therefore she's in Aries for all of us. Anyway, so people were worried, like, if I have something there, you'll know yourself if something's up. And definitely if you have something there, be aware of the major transits alongside there. Just as a little caveat, because I don't want to talk about Eris all the time, it's a bit heavy. But if you want to watch mostly for Mars, Saturn, and Uranus, and Pluto, but Pluto's going to be past all of our lifetime by the time it's there. So Mars, Saturn, Uranus. I think Chiron's going to be an interesting one in a couple years, so that we'll talk about when we get there. But yeah, definitely Uranus, Mars, those are the ones to watch for with Eris. And what happens with this conjunction? Well, we saw, and in astrology, we have to say when we're talking about difficult things that it is a probability curve, so it does not mean that something will happen. It just increases the chance or the probability. And it also can manifest in many ways. It can manifest as a verbal argument. it can manifest as something greater than that. So there's no guarantee that something will happen, but there's a higher chance, and the way that it shows up is also variant. So don't, just because you have something here, then don't worry that something will happen. But if you do have something at 24, 25 degrees of Aries, any transit or placement, just be cautious of when Mars enters Aries at this degree, or, just be aware of those things. And I think that will be important. You may also want to know where Eris is in your chart from the time of your birth, but we'll talk about that in a special or another day. So Venus joins Eris, and the important aspect of that was that story from the Trojan War. So their energies are deeply connected. One little other sidebar: Venus is known as the goddess of love and wonderful woo-woo energies, but she's feisty. She's Mars's girlfriend. She's not necessarily a wallflower at all, and she shows all the gods their place. And she is a boss. She is a tough chick. So this energy together has been intense. And because of some of the larger world events that have been going on, it's also important to recognize that the fact that there's 3 or 4 different things happening at the same time that's causing escalations. And I'm not just talking about Texas, I'm talking about other things as well. So if it feels chaotic, this is going to bring chaos. This is going to bring like WTF just happened, and if you want to share your stories with me, then please do so. Okay, so second transit, second transit is, okay, so I had to put so let's talk about today's transit. I know I had to, because there's 2 that are very close together. So today's transit, and this is going to continue on. Mercury is going to trine Pluto. And if you've been watching my channel from earlier this year, you know that I have a theory. It's, I put forward a theory that Putin's moon is actually in the Medusa position here. So Vladimir Putin's moon is usually cited as being at 3 degrees of the sun of Gemini, but because he was born at a time that, on a day that, if you just adjust the time of his birth, which is really questionable in 1950s Russia, early 50s, he was born in 1952. If there's a real high chance his mother was either in labor, or he was actually born under the Medusa moon. And if you have a Medusa moon, ask me about it. And don't necessarily think it is an extreme placement, but certain conditions have to happen. If he was born earlier that day, those conditions were in place for what we're seeing. So when the Russian stuff happened, Ukrainian stuff happened, the moon was hitting these positions of Scorpio, Taurus, and where was it? I think it was in Virgo. It was creating this grand trine of energy between Pluto, Mercury, and this. And when we had Venus and Mars here in Capricorn, all of these things began in January to March. So there's just a really deep connection to Medusa with this. It's not necessarily literally to do with this story, but what we do know, Medusa is described by astrologers as the most malefic star. That's what they've been saying for thousands of years. So there's a reason why they see it, and it's with astrology like this, it's explicit. You see it, you see it on the news, and it hits hard when it does, and we've been seeing it. So without kind of milking this, it's happening. So Mercury is now retrograde to this position. Because it's a retrograde energy, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that it's reworking something, causing things that have happened, pushing them along to a different direction. And you can think about this in the macro, which government, Russia, U.S. policies, all of these different things. But you can also think on your own personal level in the sense that this could be affecting any imbalances of power, right, that you're experiencing with others could be revisited at this time. So it's usually those relationships that you're shaking in the knees about, whether it's a family member, a boss, someone who really intimidates you. This kind of energy could be reworking itself. So it's actually Mercury retrograde in this position could be possibly not such a bad deal. But I do want to give you guys a bit of a warning. You see what's going on. If you do a little astrology, you can see it now. We have this, which is at the 26th, 59 minutes. So that's almost 27th degree, which is Medusa. On the 29th at 4 a.m., so a couple days from now, right before the new moon, the moon will cross Medusa and Mercury. And like I said early on in the year, whenever the moon hit this position, it did cause activations in Ukraine. And we've already seen this come up in this energy as Mercury retrograded into Taurus. There are reports that there's an escalation in Donbass region and that they're really leading to a headway. Let me just explain it. If somebody missed it, it's going to be one sentence, but let me just show you guys. So when Russia this is my theory. When Russia invaded, there was a massive energy in Capricorn. Capricorn is associated with physical brute force power, old military tanks, and all these kinds of things. I'm not saying things have gotten better, but once this energy shifted more to Aquarius and the other signs, it feels like Russia lost steam. They had to move out of the north and readjust. So when we're seeing this right now with the moon in Taurus, moon in Taurus with Mercury, we're seeing once again that escalation. However, the concentration in Capricorn, it's not there anymore, so I'm hoping it's short-lived. So if you're hoping for some good news, yes, temporary escalation, May 28th, May 29th, but May 29th in the morning, 4 a.m. Vancouver time, so that's Pacific, so adjust it to your time zone. And but that the might of the military, the might of the industrial military, kind of like the old style tanks and guns sort of thing. It could be just temporarily shoot up and then pass away. So I think that Russian, and I'll do more content on this in another video, but I do feel like I'm not excusing it. Of course, real world things happen that caused it. But through the eyes of astrology, I think it's deeply correlated with Capricorn, and it's showing up in Putin's moon and other things as well. There's other transits as well, but I think this is a key one. And so when the moon crosses Medusa, I would just recommend on the 29th in the morning, be cautious, in how you conduct yourself. And we've been under this transit, particularly if you have placements at the end of Virgo. So if you're born late into September, let's say like the 12th through the end of Virgo, you really want to watch it because this is going to be creating a grand trine to your placement. You don't have to be a September born Virgo, but maybe you are like a Virgo moon, or you have almost a Libra moon. This grand trine energy could be, again, one of those activation points for you. So be aware of that. And then the last transit I want to highlight for you guys, and then we'll get to the good one. I promise I have very good news. But this is kind of words of caution, and I hope you're not worried. This is more acknowledging what is and how to get around it. Overall, the cards are very, very positive about new beginnings. So this is, I'm hoping with Mercury retrograde, this is a reconciliation. Now today, May 26th through the 28th, before Venus enters Taurus on the 28th or 29th, she's 28th at 9:30 in the morning. before then, from the 26th through the 28th, Venus is going to be creating a square to Pluto. Venus and Pluto have a very intense relationship. And when Venus is an aspect, whether in your chart or in a transit, in a square or opposition or conjunction, a lot of emotional stuff is through the roof, and a very, very kind of hostile energy happens. And I hope this is not going to lead to more physical violence or things that are hurt. I think that this is more on the interpersonal level, and I think it's going to hit hard, or it's hitting people hard, because those two other transits happen. So they're simply tired. Your nervous system is tired, and you're tired of the news and the things that are happening. So as Venus is squaring Pluto, I'm just here to remind you, this is a couple-day transit. Don't get overwhelmed. If social relationships are overwhelming to you, if you feel bullied or threatened or feeling really brought down, hold on tight. As Venus clears this area and stops her square to Pluto, you're going to feel better, I hope. So that's a sign. I also wanted to mention that when Eris and Venus formed a conjunction, if you go on my Twitter, you'll see a list of examples that I woke up in the morning and there was a list of examples of things that happened. There was an electric car that caught fire in Vancouver, just spontaneously combusted, and they were able to put it out, but it was kind of intense. Henry Kissinger came out of retirement. He's 98 years old, so it's strange that he's coming out. And he came out to say that Russia should be given Ukrainian territory, and that it's not in the best interest of America to intervene in that. Of course, that kind of advice would lead to human suffering and loss of life. And so I looked at his astrology, and what I found that was very interesting was on the year in 1969, when he was elected the American National Security Advisor under Nixon, Saturn was at 24 degrees of Aries. So this means that whatever they did, because to me it's strange that a 98-year-old man is speaking in a public setting and encouraging the perpetuation of this conflict and encouraging behaviors that would lead to loss of life. And it's very interesting perspective. And so it's interesting that his career began, alongside Saturn at 24 degrees. That's not where Eris was then, but that's where Eris is now. So it's interesting. This is how transits happen. They show up in, people who are talking just as much as events that are happening. So, pretty intense stuff. So we talked about Venus square Pluto. To me, that feels like neurological exhaustion and being tired. Mercury trine Pluto, that's a little bit more problematic, especially on May 29th when the moon joins this position. But this could be actually a overcoming or some kind of resolution to these past incidents. All I know is that there's a lot happening here right now, especially with regard to Russia, and maybe for you as well. But maybe it's just Pluto in a, trine to this area. And the North Node was here earlier this year as well. But there's been a lot happening with the Medusa star this year. And then finally, last but not least, just the conjunction with Eris and Venus. And we know what kind of violence erupted around that. So with respect to everybody who is suffering, my condolences, sad story, and I'm not excusing anybody's actions, but that's how these things are showing up. Okay, so we have those three, and now the good. I promised you good. So actually, on the 28th, we have Venus that's going to enter Taurus, so that's really nice. And so Venus and Mars just had entered into Aries a couple days ago. So earlier this year, they joined together. That was once in 100, 200 year crazy transit. But now they're quite a lot apart. Venus is quite a lot faster than Mars, so she can clear a sign much faster. She'll actually be in Taurus until June 23rd. That's when she enters into Gemini. What's interesting about this for me, and why I think it's really good about love, and it's showing up that there's a lot of love and camaraderie coming up, is because Venus and Mars are both in rulership. Venus is in rulership in Taurus, and Mars is in rulership in Aries. And the last time, this happens periodically, it's not a very common transit. The last time it happened was 2015. So it's about 7 years since the last time that both Mars and Venus were in rulership in these signs. So this gives the feminine and the masculine very strong energy. Both feminine and masculine energies are coming up strong. Now, you don't hear me say a lot about divine feminine, masculine energies, but here this is very resonant, which means that in your relationships with people who are expressing this masculine energy or the feminine energy, it's coming up strong. If you identify or associate yourself with the feminine, you're feeling very strong right now because Venus is in Taurus, and through that feminine energy. And when Mars is in Aries, the masculine is feeling strong as well. So this can lead to conflict. This is a semi-sextile, so they're not necessarily on the same page. But in terms of healthy relationships, you want your partner to feel strong and feel self-confident and all of these things. So the fact that they're in these respective signs together, I think that overshadows any mild disagreements that they may have. So in other words, both masculine and feminine energy might be a little headstrong right now because they could be feeling very strong about yourselves. But on the other hand, it's very attractive when your partner is like feeling within their element and feeling strong and expressing it themselves well. So you might be experiencing a really long transit. So this transit of complementary, rulership, I don't know how to call it, will continue until June 22nd, 23rd, when Venus enters Aries. So in your relationships, it's a really good time to push ahead for that reason. Now, when we're talking about these astrology things, there's different aspects of looking at it. So it's a little bit yes, a little bit no. It's a lot of extreme energies now, so it's a lot of yes, a lot of no. So be mindful of it and find your best path through it. But there is something consolidating with the feminine being strong and the masculine being strong and asserting themselves well, being able to make strong decisions, which is the Emperor here, and begin new things and look in new directions, but then also working well together and finding camaraderie and being on the same page as well. So there's a lot of success up ahead, whether you're a man or a woman or a person who experiences both energies. It's a really silver lining for all these other energies. So yeah, Eris is a pain in the butt. She's there. You won't see her on my charts very often because it's just pessimistic. Lilith is there. Yeah, we can't really get away from it. And Algol is there. But there's a whole lot of good, and this energy of Venus and Mars is actually has me really hopeful. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little talk on the astrology. I'm just going to check in with the comments just to see how you guys are. But yeah, so enjoy yourselves. And this is more of an energy of, if you're already in a relationship, you'll notice this with your partner. There will be more of an assertive energy. There will be an assertive vibe. But even if you're single, put yourself out there. Look for what you want. Look for what you want in other people, and assert yourself at this time, for whether it's a relationship or something else. So I hope this helps. I just want to I saw a couple people asking questions in the comments. It's not possible for me to answer questions now, but if you copy your question into the comments down below, I'll be happy to answer them for you, before the new moon or whatever else. If I've been missing your questions, it's been crazy for me. Not bad crazy, but just really working hard at catching up. So please be patient with me. I'm working on it. And yeah, just leave your questions and comments in the comments section, and I'll see you guys soon. And if you like the more hard-hitting astrology and me being blunt, then please follow me on Twitter. That's where you get, off the cuff and really, this is happening now. You don't want to miss this. Sometimes I miss things like Lilith in Cancer, something I'm not considering. So Twitter is the first place where I'm like, oh, this is important. So if you want that, then go there. Twitter's easy. You just write a little message, right? You guys, I love you so much. Thank you for being here. And I don't want you to feel pessimistic about these transits. I'm here to, name the demon. Basically, once you name something, you can deal with it and you can move on. And this Venus Mars energy, I really like it. I think it's, just do you in the most authentic way possible and be confident within yourself. Okay. I'll see you guys soon, and I'm excited to be here. I hope you're excited to be here with me. See you soon.